Hello everybody, Floppy Waffle 69 here, and welcome back to the channel. Hey guys, today we are doing our deep dive analysis review on the Tier 10 United States Navy destroyer. This is USS Laffey. What a cool ship, what a historic ship, and finally we can have the opportunity to obtain her in World of Warships, which I'm sure many of you, as myself, are super excited that this ship has finally come to World of Warships. But is she any good? Does this ship stack up well at the competition? As we know, Tier 10 is a highly competitive tier, and your destroyers have to stand out in some way, shape, or form, which is kind of sad, but they do. Obviously, is the ship fun? Is the ship worth the doubloon cost to finish the Dockyard? Is she competitive? These are all questions that hopefully I can answer by the end of this video. That is kind of my goal going into it, because at the end of the day, it is your hard-earned money, or doubloons in this case, and it's going to be your decision ultimately to decide whether or not that you should spend the extra, 4,000, 6,000 doubloons in order to pick up this Tier 10 legendary destroyer for the United States Navy. Now, I need to make some things clear right out the gate, or right at the get-go, right at the gates, whatever you want to say. So I can't really speak right now. I don't know what's going on. And that is basically what this ship is and what it is trying to accomplish. Basically, what I can freaking think about when I want to think about this ship, and what I can kind of conjure in my mind, is this was an amalgamation of 3 different destroyers that are already present in game that Wargaming threw together and kind of put at Tier 10 to say, here you go, this kind of resembles what the USS Laffey is going to be like and what the playstyle is going to entitle. Which, again, following the ship that could not be sunk is pretty interesting, and I'm glad that they kind of went with this suit in regards of the overall playstyle. There is one thing that I'm not too happy about, but that's just me and the way the game is going in development process. I'm sure the vast majority of you are okay with this certain mechanic being added to this ship. Of course, myself, I don't really like the mechanic because I feel like Wargaming is throwing it on everything nowadays, but that's just me. So what this thing is, the amalgamation of 3 different ships we already have in game. One is the USS Kidd at Tier 8 with its heel. Known as a really good cap contester, has the ability to survive because it has that heel, and that carries suit here to Tier 10. Even though we don't just get a normal heel, we actually get an improved or specialized repair teams, which is super nice. The only other destroyer, I believe, for the United States Navy and at Tier 10 is the Hull through the Research Bureau ship. But this heel is actually a little bit better, and I will go ahead and tell the stats later on when we get to that part of the video. Number 2 is the Johnston. The Johnston does bring various other tools to the mix, and the Johnston has the burst fire mode, which the Laffey does have as itself. The Laffey does pick up a burst fire mode that is okay. It's not the best burst fire mode when we compare it to other ships already in game. I think that number 1 being, like the top of my head, is the Joshua Humphreys or whatever at the super ship down the gearing line. I'll be comparing it to that burst fire more so than that of the Johnston, because the Johnston has SAP and the Johnston has single mounted gun turrets rather than the double barreled 127s we see here, which the Humphreys has. So it just is a better comparison, at least in my opinion. And the third ship is the Burrows, because the Burrows has the new smoke mechanic, which is like that time-oriented, time-based smoke. Not a number of charges, rather your charges are linked into the time, and once your time expires, you are completely out, rather than you have a set amount of consumable charges that you can pop normally, and once you're out of those, then you're out of your consumable, right? So we have those 3. And obviously, if you want to do an honorable mention, we could say, well, this is an Alan Sumner class, so it's not really like a good direct comparison to the the gearing. So I guess it's more comparable to like that of the Yu Yang, but we're just going to say gearing because they're both the United States Navy and it's easier to understand. But basically, yeah, if you want to throw that in there as well, because that is the hull that we are utilizing, which would be the Yu Yang's hull, which I believe is a Sumner class. I don't know why. I'm like, once I get behind the microphone and start recording, I forget all this shit, but whatever. Maybe it's nerves. I don't know. It doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter. So that's basically what this ship is trying to be. So if that intrigues you already, then I can honestly say this ship is going to feel right at home for you. It's going to be pretty comfortable in that regard. But again, just wait, watch the whole video, hopefully. Obviously, you can skip around. I'll make sure to timestamp some shit. So you guys can skip around if you want to. Because I know these videos can get very long and lengthy. And unless you're taking a shit or driving in your car, you really don't want to sit here and watch a full 30-minute video. I get it. I'm human too. Okay? But like we always do, we're going to go into the stats of the ship. We're going to talk a little about them, compare them to other ships. You can kind of see, oh, this is similar to that one. Okay, this makes sense. So it's worth talking about, okay? So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about the armor layout. And usually, as you know, if you've been around my channel for any length of time, I usually don't like talking about destroyers' armor schemes because generically, they're just, what is it? They don't really have much armor. They're just flat out across the board, as you see here, pretty standard, pretty standard, going up to 20 millimeter as its like thickest part. And which this is right, this falls directly in suit with that. Only the guns are at your 20 millimeters, right? And everything else is about 19, 19, and 19. So again, this thing can get penned by destroyer levels of HE, secondaries, all that, all that jazz. The only reason I bring it up is because it's worth comparing it to that of like the Gearing, who has that improved midsection right here, which is 21 millimeters effective armor. The Laffey does not have that. So Laffey is going back to your generic destroyer level armor of 19 millimeters. So it has no mitigation tactics for small caliber HE, is what I'm trying to tell you. So that's why it was worth talking about. Okay. Going into the survivability, you are clocking in at 18,500, which is actually on the low end. The Summers being the lowest at 17,300, and some other ships. The only other ship that beats it out in like lower category is the Shimakaze at 17,900. And then again, it's tied with the Yu Yang there because it shares the same class as her at 18,500, just being barely etched out by what 200, 300 points of HP by the La Pampa. So obviously, you have not much HP to work with. Survivability Expert is a must, and this is why I highly recommend taking Superintendent, because you want to get an additional charge with that super heal. It's going to allow you to have more survivability, more game impact, because the longer you stay alive means the more spotting you can have for your team and potential damage being dealt. That's general rule of thumb. Shouldn't need to say that to you guys. Okay, going into the artillery, and I will go ahead and flash up the gun firing angles, which I always want to talk about, which are pretty comfortable on this ship. Though I will mention that the turret traverse seems rather slow to me, and I don't know if that's across the board common for this particular ship. I mean, I was looking at the 180-degree turn time, and like the fastest is the Forrest Sherman, the slowest is the Shimakaze. And if we're going around like different turrets around in game, the Laffey's coming down at 22nd, which again matches that of the Yu Yang at 7.5. But I don't know, for me it just felt slow. Again, it could just be because I don't play a whole lot of these style of DDs. I've been playing a lot of cruisers. Obviously I'm a cruiser main, so sometimes I forget how fast or how slow turrets can be for other ship classes. But to me it just felt kind of like, okay, come on, third turret, get on target, come on, okay, there we got it. You know what I mean? So I just want to point that out there. Again, if you're playing destroyers and you're like, Floppy, you're talking out of your ass right now, dude, like that's completely normal, then I'm talking out of my ass right now, okay? You know what I'm trying to say? So if it's comfortable for you, it's comfortable for you, okay? These are the 3x2 127 millimeter guns. They are reloading in 2.6 seconds. That is because I'm taking in the 6th upgrade slot, my main battery mod 3. I think if I'm correct, if you have it stock, the reload time is 3 seconds, okay? Which is 0.3 faster than that of the Gearing. We have our 180-degree turn time of 8.3 seconds. Dispersion is same across the board, not a big deal. It's standard DD dispersion. And then your maximum range is 12.4 kilometers. Going into the high explosive shell, this is 1,800 maximum damage with a 5% fire chance, which they can go ahead and pen 21 millimeters of armor. Then going into the armor piercing, it has a 2,100 damage maximum AP damage as well. Now, both share the same initial velocity coming out of the barrels at 792 meters a second, and this is worth talking about. The shells are just like Gearings, which are pretty much the worst shell at tier 10 when it comes to destroyers because they're just so damn floaty. So you're going to have to lead your target accordingly, and sometimes at those longer ranges, you might not want to shoot just because if you're not comfortable with where the shells are going or you're hitting the target, you're just basically keeping yourself detected is what I'm trying to say. So you have to have good gunnery skills in order to land shells effectively on target. Going back to the HE shells, you have, like I said, a 5% fire chance, which is going to allow you to have about 6 fires per minute. So that the fire starting capability is kind of meh on this ship, but you'll see why. I mean, obviously you still want to fire your guns, and HE is going to be your bread and butter. Your destroyer armed with 127mm guns. Just understand that fires are not going to be as common compared to other ships, like the last DD line we did, down the line series 2, which was the Daring. The Daring was a fire starting menace, and the Laffey not so much. Okay. Okay, I guess we should talk about the burst fire now, because the burst fire is underneath the artillery tab. Obviously, this is like your F key, you proc it, and you're going to be able to shoot 3 bursts in a series, and then you have a longer reload, which right now your burst in series is 3. Your reload time is 22 seconds, and your interval is 0.88 seconds. And this is actually more impactful because the way I have the ship built, that's why you're going to have these improved stats. If you don't have the improved stats and it's just your raw statistics without any upgrades on it, you're going to have a 25-second reload with a 1-second interval and 3 shots involved in your burst fire mode. So what I'm looking at, or what you're looking at on screen with the burst fire mode, this is basically what you're going to get if your build is aligned with mine and how I built my Laffey. So again, not bad at all, right? Now, I do want to compare this to the Joshua Humphreys burst, and that's the super ship there at tier 11. Your reload is 35. Again, this is all base. I want to say that this is all base. This is non-upgraded captain skills or upgrades, right? This is just your flat-out raw stats. It's going to be 35 seconds. Your interval between shots is 1.5, and your number of shots is 3. But again, because it's a super ship, it's going to have a little bit more, and it's actually going to up your damage by 50%, which again is super nice. If you're there at super ship level with that extra damage. We don't have that down here at the Laffey. We're just getting consecutive shots out there. And again, knowing when to utilize your burst fire mode is something I'm going to be stressing a lot as I not only review other burst ships, burst firing mode ships or whatever, but especially the Laffey as a destroyer. I mean, 22 seconds, that's life or death, right? So you're going to have to be smart when you utilize this burst fire and know, hey, if I land a certain amount of shells, it's weighing greatly in my favor that I will, that I can go ahead and get away with using it and killing the target faster rather than, oh, fuck, I don't kill him. Now he's just going to be, dumping on me for 20 seconds while I'm reloading my guns. This is something you're going to have to learn, get accustomed with. And my general rule of thumb is if you're unsure that you can eliminate the said target, don't use your burst fire mode, especially when you're in DD engagements and you can't fall off. Let's say you're at a smoke screen or you're getting raided or whatever. Other times you use a burst fire mode is you set a fire on a target, he damage controls it, go ahead and switch to your burst fire mode and roll the die to see if you can get another fire or 2 set on that target, because now that's a permanent fire. The last one would be if there is a target sailing behind an island and it would be your final couple salvos or final salvo you get on the ship, go ahead and switch to your burst fire mode and fire 3 consecutive salvos on that target to get as much damage or fire setting potential possible on the said ship, and then you'll have that time to reload your guns while he is behind the island fucking off. Okay, those are kind of your times that you want to utilize the burst fire mode, and I'll go over those again while we're in game, hopefully for you guys, if I remember. And then again, if I haven't already talked about it, your main battery range is 12.4 kilometers. Also, it's not worth speccing into more range for the Laffey because you're dealing with these like gearing style of shell arcs and shell speed. Again, if you exceed anything past this, it's going to be almost null and void landing shells on target. And I mean, it already is struggling to hit shells past 10 kilometers. So, I mean, at least you have a couple more kilometers of range to work with. But is it usable range? It depends on the skill of the player and how if they know how to aim and all that kind of stuff, right? Going into the torpedoes, the 2x5 533mm launcher, the 180-degree turn time is 6 seconds. The torpedo reload time is a little bit of a doozy there with a 140-second reload, which is going over 2 minutes. The maximum range is only 8 kilometers. Hitting potential damage or hitting power is 17,900, speed of 66 knots, and a detectability range of 1.4 kilometers, bringing that reaction time to 7.9 seconds. Now, the torpedoes I'm not really happy with on the Laffey. Are these torpedoes usable? Yes. Are they practical? No. The reason why they're not practical for the ship is I understand Wargaming really wanted to emphasize, hey, this is a gunboat through and through. We're giving you the burst fire. We're giving you certain tools to help emphasize your guns. We want to take away something to help create a more of a balanced like ship. And that's going to be your torpedoes. For me, I still think this ship could have gotten away with 10-kilometer torpedoes. That would have been nice. Like, or the Fletcher 10.5-kilometer torpedoes. That would have been nice. But 8-kilometer torpedoes are so detrimental, especially when you don't have access to a speed boost and your ship isn't particularly fast. Making use of the torpedoes is hard, especially in World of Radar nowadays and World of Plane Spotting. It's going to be really hard to utilize these torpedoes. The best thing I found with these torpedoes is if I'm sending them into smoke screens, enemy destroyers, right? Or if a ship is trying to push me in my smokescreen around the corner, then I can go ahead and launch these 8-kilometer torpedoes. They're very hard to make use of. And nowadays, like today's meta, but you can use them. But please don't try to go throw yourself in situations just to utilize your 8-kilometer torpedoes. There's really no need to do that. Yes, you have a super heal, but at the end of the day, if you don't have to trade HP, like, or give up any HP in order to take HP, then why would you want to do that, right? And torpedoes should be your second means armament anyways. Your main bread and butter is going to be your guns on the Laffey, guys. Obviously the ship has depth charges. The way I have it built, it's going with a maximum damage of 5,100, 2 charges with 14 bombs per charge. It can be nice, little submarine hunter, but the problem is when submarines are matching you in speed, when they're submerged, it's really hard to get your ship over that. Or if they're at periscope depth and you can't spot them, but they're spotting you so that everyone can shoot you, yeah, it bites ass, right? So keep that in mind. I wouldn't really consider this thing a submarine hunter by any means. All right, the AA defense. Here we go. Okay, so this is worth talking about because as we know, American destroyers have access to that defensive AA fire consumable. Usually they can choose either defensive AA or speed boost, like on the gearing line, for example. Well, I think personally, on a side note, I just think the whole gearing line should have the defensive AA fire consumable and the speed boost in separate slots to help further emphasize that supportive DD role, kind of like universally supportive role like the Des Moines has, for example, or Worcester. But yeah, Wargaming disagrees, okay? The Laffey doesn't have that choice. Matter of fact, it can't even choose speed boost. It only has defensive AA fire. So that kind of sucks, but the defensive AA fire is a little bit improved like we see on American destroyers, but in a way that's different than what you're used to. And I'll get into that in a bit. Let me talk more about the AA here. Obviously, you have 20mm Oerlikons, you have 40mm Bofors, and you have your 127 Mark 12s here, which are the main battery guns, which are also dual purpose. Continuous damage is coming in or clocking in at 160. Your short range is 95, your medium range is 109, and your long range is 63. And the maximum range of your A is that of 5.8 kilometers. Damage of shell explosion is, with my build, it's 1,680 with 3 flak bursts as well. And then obviously you get your priority sector reinforcement at 35%. Now, the interesting fact on the Laffey is the defensive AA consumable, and I'll make sure to say that right here. And the big difference that you need to understand, and I'm comparing this to the gearing, would be the best way to compare it to, or best ship to compare it to, is it gets, instead of your standard 100% on the AA damage, this actually boosts it by 200%. So this is definitely improved, and that's also along with the 300% flak damage, right? But instead of just the 100% AA, you're actually getting 200% AA. And that's actually why I recommend taking the defensive AA consumable, or not consumable, the module in the second slot. And I'll show that to you guys right here real quick, right here, because it's going to have the consumable action time is going to be up longer by 20%, and it's going to be a cooldown time of reduced by 10%. And if you think about it, there really isn't anything else I'd want to take in this second slot. I mean, the engine room protection, yeah, it's not bad, but for me, CVs and hybrids are so common nowadays that I actually like taking that because it allows me to go and do my kind of DD hunting role, that aggressive kind of destroyer role, and not be in fear of my life from aircraft carriers. Yes, I understand if a CV wants you dead, he's going to kill you. Okay, he's going to kill you. But at the end of the day, if something can help mitigate that, especially if I can basically eradicate or push away bad CV players or CV players that aren't proficient with dodging flak and taking damage with their planes or reconciling their squadrons and all that stuff, by all means, I want to take advantage of that, right? Because again, if CVs are striking me, that means they're not striking other ships on my team, which again, with some player like me, you would actually want that. So I know I bitch about aircraft carriers, but at the end of the day, I do want them to attack me because I feel like I can handle CVs a little bit more than like the common player in this game. And that's not a bad thing. That's just me being selfless and wanting my team to win and take away that load or that burden, because people easily allow CVs to rage them and make them do things and pull them out of position that they don't want to do, which is inevitably gets them killed. Maneuverability, 36.5 knots with a turning circle radius of 620 meters with a rudder shift time of 3.1. This is my build on my Laffey, which again is not bad. The turning circle radius is a little bit of ass. You will notice that it does take a bit to whip this bitch around. She is a fat boy, so just keep that in mind. And again, the maximum speed of 36.5 knots, and especially in nowadays meta, is pretty painful. So positioning is going to be key, and make sure you read your mini map and understand certain scenarios. I would tread on the side of caution more so than aggression, especially in the beginning of the game, just because you want to see what the enemy loadout is and deployment, rather than just rushing into the cap and say, this is my cap, there are many like it, but this one is mine. So just tread on the side of caution before we go ahead and get in there, okay? And going lastly into our concealment. Obviously this is different because I have the concealment module slotted. So your detection base is 7.4. You use the concealment module obviously to get it down to 6.7. With the captain skill, you get it down to 6 kilometers, or 5.9. Let me just double check. Yeah, 6 kilometers. So again, super nice. That's definitely competitive. Obviously, there's going to be better concealed ships, but again, the way the game renders ships in this game, you should be able to mirror match, spot targets pretty effectively, especially if you're both going head on to one another. So I really not a big deal for me having 6.7 concealment on my Laffey. So going into the captain build, obviously, as you can see here on the left, this is my captain build. Pretty self-explanatory, pretty standard destroyer build. I think the only thing abnormal about this is I'm taking the, what I already talked about, the defensive AA modification. You don't have to do that. If you don't want to take that, then I would take engine room modification or protection, sorry. This is just going to be a bunch of good things that are most likely going to get knocked out regardless of who's firing at you. So it better allow you to have quicker repair times, right? So and then the captain build, I already showed you the captain build. I don't need to go through and do, or no, I haven't showed you the captain build, but I'm going to go ahead and show that on screen now anyways. Really pretty self-explanatory. I just want to make sure I have my survivability up, and allow myself to, if I'm spotted, which you will be in this ship most likely, I can go ahead and eliminate targets and do as much suppressing fire as possible. I do want to be shot at in the ship, and I have a super heal that can help get me back up if need be. And the super heal is worth talking about because I don't think I've talked about the super heal. So I'll go ahead and compare the super heal directly with that of the hull. The hull has 3 charges base. The Laffey only has 2. It lasts for 20 seconds, which is identical to that of the Laffey. And it heals 249 HP a second for 20% healed, rather than the Laffey's that is actually better, that has 278 HP a second healed with a total healed of 30%. So the Laffey's heal is inherently better. And the last thing about the Laffey is this smoke generator. Now, this is the same smoke generator that you get on the burrows, and this is, you're going to have a total of 1 minute and 20 seconds on your smoke. That's not a lot, given the fact that like the burrows gets almost 3 minutes of smoke, right? My advice is only utilize this smoke if you desperately need it. You're gonna have to be at sometimes open water and gunboating in the Laffey. If you're comfortable with open water gunboating, then the ship is going to feel awesome to you. If you're not, I would tread on the side of caution, because sadly you're going to have to be doing that a lot with this ship, and 1 minute and 20 seconds worth of smoke is not a lot of smoke. So only use this as disengagement tools, or if you need to smoke up real quick and farm a ship that is going to nuke you, like the Barbariano or the what's another one, the Regero, like sap ships, like get the first couple salvos off on them or whatever, use your burst fire mode, then disengage, stuff like that. You don't want to take those ships head on with the Laffey because you're gonna melt, right? And then the thing that sucks too on the Laffey compared to that of the Burrows, and I want to just double check that because I don't want to just you know, spew shit, is the cooldown time of your smoke generator. You know, obviously you could see here that the Laffey has a 30-second cooldown, and I believe that's with the intervals of your like when you pop it and you turn it off, you have to wait 30 seconds before it's back up. And to me, it looks like you don't have that with your yeah, you don't have that with the Burrows. The Burrows actually has a 15-second minimum use time, whereas the Laffey, I don't even know, does it have 15 seconds as well? Let me see. No, it has minimum usage of 10 seconds. But yeah, the cooldown time for some reason is 30 seconds, which is kind of shit sometimes. I don't know why you have to wait like so long before you can use it again. So you have to keep that in mind too, that you just can't dolphin your, you know, smoke screen, have it up when you want to. It's going to be coming up online, offline, not as quickly as like the Burrows, for example. So, but yeah, guys, that is the Laffey in a nutshell. And, you know, obviously I know the port analysis can be annoying at times, but I think it's incredibly important, especially if you're going to sit here and listen to me speak stats and talk about the statistics of the ship, because they're so vitally important with the way the ship operates that if you know how the ship operates and it's hard numbers, you're going to get more out of her. And on the flip side of the coin, if you know how the ship operates, you know when to take advantage of the Laffey, and you can spot a very good Laffey player rather than one that's not so good. And I can tell you right now, a not so good Laffey player is one that's going to try to sit in its smoke and farm the entire game. Well, shocker, won't, only for a minute and 20 seconds, and, you know, take 3,000 worth of damage and pop a super heal. Okay, so I'm letting you know when you can spot good versus bad players and how to play against it, right? So the Laffey is a very good at that guerrilla style warfare, hit and runs, even though less emphasis on the running because it's not so fast, but it can fall off with the smoke generator. And I'm going to show you good examples of that in game, which I think we should get to right about now, guys. So let's go ahead and get into the gameplay of the Laffey. Alrighty, guys, and here we are in game with the USS Laffey. This is on that Faroe Islands map, everybody's favorite map. Just kidding, I actually fucking despise this map, especially in my cruiser, or cruisers, but whatever. So anyways, the USS Laffey, this is actually my first game I ever played in her, and yeah, I think this is a very good introductory video to show you, you know, the power of what this ship has. You know, I was browsing Reddit a lot, and I've obviously watched a lot of other YouTubers make content on this ship, right? There's a lot of videos, by the way. Like, congrats to the development community, you know, the community contributors and all that stuff, content creators who are making a bunch of videos on this stuff. So as the player base or as the viewership, you should be well informed, okay? But where my opinion differs, that some, not all, but some players have on the opinion on this ship, is that a lot of people feel that this ship is kind of dog shit. They don't like it, okay? And I understand why they say that. Obviously, one, the shell velocity sucks. And for what this ship is trying to be, when it's compounded with that shell velocity, it's really hard to play this ship to how it's supposed to be played, of what I'm trying to say. So, like, for example, like the new Burrows line, for example, is just vastly superior in their opinion, in their minds, to this ship because it has not only sap, but it has a way longer smoke firing, smoke, like the timer on the smoke screen, and the shell velocity is just freaking phenomenal, right? And then rightfully so. Like, I'm not going to disagree with them. I think the Burrows is insanely strong, but, and this is where I differ, where the Laffey differs, in my opinion, to those ships, is I feel like the Laffey can play better by itself rather than the Burrows can. And that just comes down to the super heal and the burst fire mode and the smoke like it has, just like the Burrows. And again, what I'm trying to say is, like, yes, I'm not saying the Burrows can't do well either, okay? Obviously. And again, I'm fighting a Shimakaze that doesn't even want to fire his guns. That's not what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to tell you is that I feel like because it's a little bit more stealthy, because it has a super heal, I feel like it can go to these caps and contest a little bit better than the Burrows. I think the Burrows is insanely deadly in a division, but playing it solo is kind of a mixed bag. That's all I'm trying to say. And again, like I talked about, you don't want to sit in your smoke screens, right? When a lot of players, that's what they do. So you want to open water gunboat, and open water gunboating with these floatier shell velocity shells is hard and a pain in the ass compared to, let's say, if you're trying to trade with like a Kleber or a Gdansk, right? A Hull, just vastly superior ships that are going to do or fulfill that role better is what their argument is. And I cannot agree more with them. I think those ships are going to be well more suited and way better in those scenarios than the Laffey is. But the Laffey is going to be able to contest a little bit better by itself rather than need the support of allies and spotting and that kind of stuff. That's all I'm trying to say. Okay. And on the opposite side of the coin, a lot of people are saying, well, the Laffey is so good. This is a must get. You have to get the ship. You have to get the ship. And this is my thing, okay? At the end of the day, you are getting a special ship at tier 10 for a massively discounted rate. I think for, what is it, 4,000 to 6,000 doubloons, right? That's a steal, in my opinion. So if you're looking at it that way, absolutely the ship is worth picking up. Plus, we don't know when we're going to see the ship again. I'm assuming it's going to be a year or two down the road, and maybe Wargaming will introduce the ship in via Santa crates, or they'll do something with prior Dockyard ships, allow us to build prior Dockyard ships. I don't know what their plans are. I don't know, but I'm just looking at it from that regard. So, and this is a pretty historic ship. So for players that are newer and players that don't have a lot of ships, yeah, I understand the draw, right? But my counter argument to that is, well, there are just ships you can get by playing the game for free in game by just grinding down tech trees that are going to allow you to do the same role as the Laffey, arguably better, and just be better. Not necessarily cap contesters, because that would go against my point of the Laffey, but just better gunboat roles, right? Like the Kleber, the Gdansk, for God's sake. And then those are just a couple ships in the tech trees. Imagine if you went down like the Research Bureau or Steel route. Like, obviously there's a lot of different ships you can play around with at that point. So those are my two kind of arguments for both sides. And I can see, and I listen to everybody. Like, even if I can't stand the YouTuber or whoever they are, I still listen to their points because they still have very valid and good points that's worth taking into consideration. And that's always been a motto on my channel, and I highly recommend it to everybody else, is you shouldn't just listen to one YouTuber and it be the end all be all. You should listen to everybody. Even if someone's talking completely out of their ass, you should still listen to why they think that way. And then once you take 4 or 5 or 6 or whatever it is different opinions, then you take all those opinions, put them all together, and you do whatever works for you, is what I'm trying to say. And I think that's a very good tactic to have, right? So going more about the game, honestly, to kind of catch up with, before I was talking and going on my little rant there about, about the pros and cons of the ship. You saw me utilize the burst fire mode on the Shimakaze. Now, obviously I used the burst fire mode because he was getting ready to fall off detection. He had around 3 to 4k HP, so I knew, hey, I can get away with using the burst fire mode because I wanted to eliminate the set target. And obviously here is another example of utilizing the burst fire mode. But again, because he started maneuvering, I didn't know if I could kill this guy, so I had to be super careful. Thank God I was able to aim right and kill him, though he seemed to be distracted by what my Musashi or whatever was behind me. But again, you have to weigh the pros and the cons when you use your burst fire mode. You can't just sit there and burst fire mode every time. You don't actually get more DPM like the Johnston by using your burst fire mode. Actually, matter of fact, you cut it down considerably. So you have to know when and when not to utilize your burst fire mode. And this is definitely not like what's another example of like the Spanish cruisers? Like, you have smaller guns, you're relying more on fire damage at that point, unless you're doing DD on DD engagements. You're not looking for like that massive Citadel dev strike by a ship that goes broadside, right? So you have to factor that in too. Just make sure you understand when and where to utilize that burst fire mode is my big thing that I'm stressing to you guys, okay? But you could kind of see the Laffey kind of plays similar to what I was trying to talk about with like a low tiered, the Kid, the USS Kid. I think the Laffey, a prime model for what the Laffey is the USS Kid down at tier 8. So if you like the Laffey, or if you love the Kid, then you're going to like its corresponding ship I'm trying to compare it to, right? And I know that I recommended the USS Kid to one of my not my div mates, one of my clan mates, and he loves it. He loves the Kid. He got the Kearsarge because he was the latest, greatest ship added to the game. He had no idea what to do, how to play it. He fucking hated the thing. So I said, trade it in during the latest trade-in event and get a ship that looks fun to you. And I said, why not do the Kid? I think this is a very fun ship. You love destroyers, blah, blah, and so, and he loves the Kid. So in turn, what's he going to do? He's absolutely going to go ahead and get the Laffey because he loves the Kid. And I think that's a great comparison and a great thought process to have when trying to decide whether or not you like whether or not you want to spend the doubloons to get the ship. And since you already have the Kid, if you want to bounce your commander back and forth, it's going to fit in perfectly with the Laffey and vice versa. So a great comparison. Again, another one that would do well is the Johnston, right? I've already used that as a comparison too. So just make sure you understand that. And it'll make you feel more comfortable when playing the ship or the certain ship, or whatever it is, right? So again, making use of the 8-kilometer torpedoes here. Again, I'm not trying to put myself in a bad situation. I understand that I can catch this Satsuma kind of off guard. Maybe he doesn't think I'm in here. Maybe he eliminated that other battleship or whatever, and he's like, that was it. No one else is in here. So hopefully I can catch him with his pants down. Obviously, the Satsuma player is kind of caught in a pickle here. I don't know if he's a good player, particularly a bad player, but he kind of does just let me farm him with armor piercing on his broadside, which is something that I highly recommend you should take advantage of, especially battleships. Just because you're in a destroyer, you think you should be shooting HE to everything, and like that's not the case. You want to get those full penetrations on the broadside of a battleship, aiming that upper deck area, upper hull. You're going to get some good 3 to 4K salvos, as you're seeing here that I'm getting, and this is without the burst fire mode. So I thought about it, but then I realized that I could probably just stop here and just continue to increase or keep my DPM at a higher level by just utilizing my non-burst firing, my standard firing mode rather than my burst fire mode, and that's exactly what I did. Obviously I do die in this ship, which is rather sad, and you'll see that in a little bit, but again, this does allow me to rack up a lot of damage. So but anyways, my final thoughts about the USS Laffey. I actually enjoy the ship. I like it a lot, guys. I think this is a very fun tier 10 premium ship, or not premium ship, a special ship. I think I'm going to get a lot of use out of her. I'm going to attempt to play her in competitive. I have not done so yet, so I can't give you my opinion on that matter, but I'm going to try to do it. Why not? What do I have to lose? But, after all the things I talked about, what the ship can do, what it brings to the table, the tools it has, right? The one thing I can say, honestly, guys, is that I do think the ship is worth it. I think that you will have a enjoyable, fun experience if you do happen to pick up this ship. So again, I cannot recommend and endorse the ship enough. And hopefully you guys take my word on it and consider to go after it for yourself. So again, it's time limited. I'm getting out this video with like 3-4 days left in the Dockyard event, so hopefully I have enough people watch it. Then if you happen not to pick her up, my fingers crossed that the ship will be reintroduced into the game somehow, shape, or form for you guys, so that everyone can enjoy the USS Laffey and can hopefully pick her up, right? So but yeah, guys, that's pretty much the video. I'm just going to get nuked by a burst fire mode Conde, which rather suck, but here's a good example of that turning circle race I was talking about. It's not particularly agile. This is a thick bitch, so you're going to want to plan accordingly to that as well. Also, hitting an island that doesn't exist is also cool. And again, I've expired all my smoke screen because I only have 1 minute and 20, and this would be a great time to utilize that, right? Instead, I am going to be eating 240 millimeters of HE up my ass, and sent down to fucking Davy Jones here, boys. So anyways, guys, I don't want to keep you too long. I will go ahead and cut to the post-battle screen here now, and you will see what I was talking about with this ship. So here's the post-battle screen, guys. Not a bad result on our USS Laffey, eh? Anyways, I hope you enjoyed the video. Stay tuned for more content, and I will see you on the next one. Peace out, guys.